guys, welcome to another review. Today we're going to be looking at Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Unlike last week, which was a book that I wasn't so fond of, this book series is one that I actually really like. I've got them all here. Again, if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my phone because that's where all my notes are. So basically, this is one of the best sci-fi books that I think I've ever read. I wouldn't say I don't read sci-fi, I do. I would say I don't read a whole lot of space opera type sci-fi. I think this and a series called Saga of the Seven Suns are probably my favorites. I'll probably do that one in a future review if people are interested. Anyway, so this is more of a plot-based than a character-based series, I would say. I personally, as a writer and as a reader, I guess, I normally read more character-based. It does have strong characterization, so I'm not saying the characterization's weak or anything like that. I just definitely think this is more focused on the world building and the plot in general rather than the characters. There's the original trilogy, which is Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star, and then there are some more books in the series that are set later on after a time skip. But I'm just going to be talking about the main trilogy today. So the basic premise is that in the near future, Mars has been colonized, and there are different tiers of society, I guess. It's a similar sort of concept, what you see in a lot of things, like how Hunger Games has the districts, how Divergent has the different factions. So in this society, it's colours. So you've got gold, which are the elite. They're really rich. They're often famous warriors. And then you've got all these different colours who have different occupations. And then you've got reds, which is basically the bottom of the barrel. They're miners, usually. They do a lot of the intense physical labour, and that's really their role in society. So this book focuses on the main character is called Darrow, and he has a wife called Io. At least I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. Anyway, he is 16 at the start of the series. However, I know that's pretty young to be married, but it's made pretty clear that Reds often die quite young. So they tend to marry young as well. Anyway, so his wife is, again, this is going to involve spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers for the books, probably best not to watch this video. His wife is killed for insubordination against the Golds. And this causes him to join a resistance. And he is basically, because his physiology as a red is different to that of Gold's, so he has to be carved, which is, I guess, a nice way of saying his entire physiology has to be changed for him to transform into a Gold and to basically be a spy in their society, I guess. And one of the quotes from the first novel is, "I would have lived in peace, but my enemies brought me war." So the first book very much follows his journey through what's called the Institute, which is where a lot of young Golds go. I would say it's almost like a war games type of thing, like similar to the Hunger Games, but the aim isn't to kill everybody. It's basically a game of war and strategy. And the older members of society, the older Golds, see how they perform and how they rank, and that is how these Golds obtain places in society, basically. The other two books focus more on like the wider uprising and everything that's going on, which I think is probably why I preferred them to the first book. That's not to say I didn't like the first book, because I really did. But the first book's focus is very much on Darrow in the Institute, and the other two books are a bit more focused on the uprising and all of that. It's a bit like the Hunger Games in the sense of like how the resistance works, I suppose. I wouldn't say it feels like a rip-off of the Hunger Games or anything like that. It's a bit like Hunger Games with space opera sort of vibes, but it's not blatant rip-off of Hunger Games. So we'll go into the characters. There's Darrow, who I've told you a bit about. He's the main protagonist. Got his best friend Severo, his love interest Mustang. And Mustang is the daughter of Nero, who is the man who sentenced Darrow's wife Io to death. So Nero is the villain, very much the villain at first. But then you actually have a sort of secret antagonist, I guess. I'm going to say it because it's pretty obvious in even the early books. The Jackal, who is Mustang's twin brother. He's like a snake in the grass type thing. Like you kind of know he's bad, but you don't see him coming. I think he's a really good villain, and his villainy is a lot more subtle than Nero's is. There's also Cassius, who, depending on the situation, can be Darrow's friend or Darrow's rival. It just really depends where in the series you are and what's happening. One of the big things that I quite enjoyed, and this isn't everyone, because a lot of people like romance, I liked that the romance wasn't front and center. And that's something, I guess, that's personal to me, is that I don't like the romance as the sort of the main plot that's going on. I like it more as a subplot, as something on the side, because to me, the romance has to make sense. The romance has to feel like it's natural rather than it's like, oh, okay, there's this character and they only serve as this character's love interest. Because I think Mustang as a character had a lot more to offer than just being Darrow's love interest. So even though it's there and it's in the story, it's not like the main focus of the story. So Darrow's time at the Institute is very much an exploration of what war's like, and it gives the young Golds a bit of a taste of that. I'm glad the author didn't shy away from like the gritty elements of war. Like he wasn't like the young Golds are going to these war games, but it's like a clean, tame version of what war's really like. It's not. Some of them die. There's all sorts of things going on that you would see in a real war. And I think that was sort of the point of the Institute, is to train these young Golds that this is what the real world's like. You've grown up being pampered. This is what the real world's like. A lot of the concepts of society I really enjoyed. Like there's, for example, this is a bit of a random one. There's a maneuver called the Iron Rain, which is basically when an army will deploy their troops onto a planet or a moon from orbit. And that's something that we see used in the trilogy. That's like a big military move, I guess. The end of Golden Sun was very exciting to me. Surprising, but exciting. I won't say the whole twist, even though I am talking spoilers. I won't go into the whole twist, but like, it's basically the Red Rising version of Red Wedding. Like I'd put it up there with Red Wedding in terms of like, it's something that you could have seen, but it's still really shocking exactly how it pans out. And I actually liked how it served to drive the plot of Morningstar forward, because I enjoy a main character who has to hit rock bottom and then move up from there. And that's very much what happens with Darrow at the end of Golden Sun. Because I find if a character's trajectory is just them going up and up and up, I'm kind of bored by it, because it's like there are no drawbacks. This character's just constantly moving forward. And that's not really how real life works. Like there's ups and downs. So I think like in a series like this, it makes sense that the character has to really hit rock bottom to then sort of go through the ranks again, I guess. Like Darrow is very much broken by the end of Golden Sun, the start of Morning Star. Yeah, I guess it sounds kind of sick, but I like it when characters are broken down a bit so they have to get back up. Like I'm not saying just like break your characters at every opportunity. I'm just saying that for me personally, I think it's more rewarding when we see this character who's at the bottom of the barrel and they have to really claw their way back up to get to the level of where like the antagonist is. I guess my only criticism about this would be the characters. It's one of those instances where the characters sound a lot older than they are. Yeah, Darrow is 16 at the start of the first, but throughout the series, he doesn't really feel like he's a teenager. Like he feels like he's older. And I guess that's sort of like, I mean, as a Red, he's led a hard life or something like that. But I think for me, that was the only thing that sort of, I wouldn't say put me off, but it made me a bit like, oh, okay, like this doesn't really sound like how a teenager would speak or how a teenager would think. But aside from that, like I pretty much enjoyed all of it. I'll read you another quote, which is like my favorite quote from Morning Star. I won't say who it's about. This is always how the story would end. Not with your screams, not with your rage, but with your silence. I really liked it as a quote. I thought that was a pretty cool quote. And there are quite a few pretty cool quotes, I guess, in the books. I would definitely say they're worth a read if you are into sci-fi. I guess if you're into stuff like the Hunger Games, I can't remember if this series is marketed as adult or young adult, but I think just the language in it, etc., makes it feel like more, it's maybe it's new adult, but it feels a bit more mature in some senses than the Hunger Games. So I guess that, yeah, I would say I would definitely recommend it if you like the Hunger Games or even Divergent, I guess, if you like that but are wanting something just like a little bit more adulty. Anyway, yeah, like I really like this series. Like I said, Mustang's a really cool character in herself. She's not just like, oh, it's Darrow's love interest. Like she's actually got a lot more going on than just being the love interest. And it's the same with a lot of the side characters, like Severo. I think a lot of you would probably like Severo. He's pretty cool, has like absolute zero restraint. He's like small for a gold and he's considered weak for a gold. And so the way that he like proves himself to his peers and to his superiors is like often quite savage. But I really kind of liked that about his character. I'll probably end it there, but I guess if you have any more recommendations for me, any comments, let me know. But that's me signing off.